We're in Sydney with Professor Jan-Louis Kruger. Is that
That's
good
good, yeah.
pronunciation?
Yeah, that's perfect. Much better than I usually get.
Okay, Jan.
Jan.
Jean-Louis. Huh?
Yeah, that works.
Jan, what's your job? What do you do?
I am, most of the time, I'd say I'm Professor of Translation Interpreting at Macquarie University. I teach primarily audiovisual translation, subtitling, things like that, but then also some translation theory and research methodology.
Okay, so you're teaching, you're researching, and you're running things.
I'm not really running things anymore. I used to, but I managed to get out of that.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Can you just tell us what you've got here in the way of training and research specialization?
So we have a suite of T&I postgraduate courses. We don't have it at the undergraduate level, but we do have a graduate diploma, a 1-year diploma in translation interpreting, and then we have a Master of Translation Interpreting Studies where you can specialize in either translation or interpreting, which is 18 months, and then a 2-year Master as well, which is an Advanced Master Translation Interpreting. Again, you can specialize in that. And then we have a dedicated Master of Conference Interpreting.
Good.
So those are the courses we have. In terms of PhD supervision, we have a range of topics, but we kind of specialize in, or at least the students that I supervise tend to be in cognitive translation interpreting studies. So mainly
cognitive
things
like, doing what kind of stuff?
Yeah, so that would be, I would say the bigger umbrella area would be language processing in multimodal contexts. So mainly subtitling, how people read subtitles, when you have to process the text alongside the audio input, but also the images on screen, things like that. But then also language processing in interpreting, where you have to process multiple sources of information. That, and then I also have one PhD student now who's working on how language is processed in interactive environments. So we're kind of looking at reading static texts and then reading dynamic texts like subtitles where the text keeps changing. And then now we're looking at what happens when you read text in an interactive environment where you're not just a passive receiver, but where what you read will influence your actions, and your actions will influence what you get to read as well. So that kind of interactive environment.
So your work is quite empirical?
Yes.
And most seems to be on the reception side, is that right?
Yes, yeah, almost exclusively on the reception side.
Which makes you something of an exception in translation studies, do you think?
I think there's a lot of work shifting in that direction now. It tends to be more in audiovisual translation by some accident of history, I suppose, because more people in that field started to become interested in reception. I know when I was first contacted once to participate in a workshop on translation process research, and I said, I think you've got the wrong guy here, because I'm not a process researcher. I didn't even think of myself as being a cognitive researcher, but because we use eye tracking as kind of a way to get an idea of how users of subtitles process that text, it kind of went into this area more of cognitive psychology, cognitive sciences. I think that there is a need for more research in that respect. I think we've theorized a lot about what the impact of our translations are on audiences. And when we look at things like accessible, say, public messaging, we say a lot about that, and we look at how accessible the text is in terms of readability measures. But there's not enough work on trying to understand exactly how do real readers respond to the text that we create. So,
we might have done too much theory without actually testing our suppositions.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Jan-Louis, you're not Australian, are you? Are you Australian? I don't know.
I would not say so, no.
Okay.
I'm an liminal space.
Well, let's go back. When you were in your mid-20s, you're from South Africa.
South Africa,
okay.
Yes.
What were you doing in your mid-20s?
Yes, so in my mid-20s I wasn't doing a great deal, if I have to be honest. I I just finished my master in literature.
Oh, literature. So
Literature.
you've come a long way.
I'm a literary scholar. I did most of my training in English literature. Did my masters on modernist poetry, William Carlos Williams in particular, and then my PhD I did on that became a little bit more about translation and translation of narrative perspective.
Okay, so you moved from literature into literary translation.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
that was basically the route. So my mid-20s, I just started teaching. So I was teaching literature. I was restoring old furniture.
Something practical.
I was not doing much research. I looked at my CV just now as well, and I think in the first 10 years as an academic, I published one article. So I was not very fast out of the blocks. How do you say it?
Yeah, but is that because there was not enough motivation or
it was
career opportunities?
I mean, in South Africa at that point you could become a university lecturer with a master. So I had a master of research, and with that I could start teaching, which meant that I started doing my PhD part-time. And while I was doing the PhD, I wasn't really publishing. It wasn't really a thing then. You did your PhD
That's
first, and then
changed
you
now.
start publishing. Yeah, now with the emphasis where universities try to get more and more students to do research, PhD by publication, which is sometimes good for some students, doesn't work for all, as you know. So that meant that I only really started doing serious research in my mid-30s, I would say.
Good.
And it's also that I think at that point I found my passion, I found what I was really interested in. Which became... it's a complicated thing to answer, because I really like literature. I started out in engineering, oddly, and then I did my bachelor's majoring in English and mathematics. Because of course, as a teacher, if you have English and mathematics, you're golden. So that's why I thought that would be okay. And then I really liked the literature, and I wanted to do more of that. But then after doing my master's, I thought it's nice, but so what, really, with literature? I like it, but it's a bit selfish, maybe. And then I thought, but I really like translation, and I like movies as well, so I became interested in subtitles. And then as I started...
This is in South Africa.
In South Africa,
yeah. Right.
Yeah. So as I started working with subtitling, we got some training in subtitling from people from the UK and Belgium. I started becoming interested in how this works. How do people actually look at film? And that really started getting me excited. And then Pilar Herrero from Barcelona introduced me to eye tracking, and I thought, wow, this is going to be nice. So then we could put people in front of a screen, have them watch it with subtitles, and look at where they're looking.
Is that the engineering bit in you coming back?
I don't know.
Return of the repressed.
I mean, it was a nice toy.
Okay.
Eye trackers.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's nice to see where people were looking. It kind of, you get almost the illusion that you can see into their minds. We can't, of course, but it gives you at least some idea of what they're thinking about, or what they're attending to. So I became interested in that, and then that became my main focus. So when I moved to Australia, I didn't teach literature anymore. No longer in the Faculty of Arts. We're in the Faculty of Medicine, the Department of Linguistics, which is an odd place for translation and interpreting to be, but here we are. And I started, then I went into a phase in my career where I was in management, essentially.
Yeah.
I did that for 15 years in South Africa as well, before I came here, and then here for 5 years. So
that slows down on your own research, or were you able to do both things?
Well, I think because of the fact that I made a shift more into experimental research, it made it easier for me to start conceptualizing projects, then get collaborators on that project. So it's not all up to me, which meant that we could gain momentum. And I think in the last 5 years of being a head of department, I finally managed to get that balance where I knew you're never going to finish the work in management. So do as much as you can, but make sure that you also get to the research.
Yes.
So I could do that, and I could keep on supervising students and start building momentum with the research. So and now that I'm done with the management bit, it's really
You're free.
I'm free. I can actually start reading articles again.
Just on that, I mean, the move from South Africa to Australia, was that just a career advancement move? Or was there any other factor?
I wouldn't say it was purely a career. It was a little bit of that. I was on a very small campus in a relatively mid-tier university in South Africa. It's not a big university. And I'd been there for 20 years, and I realized at that point, being like mid-30s, late 30s, it's maybe not a... No, I think I'm flattering myself. I was definitely older than that. In my 40s. If I wanted to really make a move, maybe this is not a bad time to do it.
Okay,
I'll leave it at that, yes.
Last question, what kind of research do you think we need? Or if you were starting to do doctoral research, what do you think we should look at?
Yeah, it's a really difficult question. I think that there's a lot of research that's veering towards more empirical stuff now, and I think that that's good, but I also think that it could be dangerous in that I've always believed, or not always, but since I started doing more experimental research, that if there is a question that you can answer empirically, then you can't not do it empirically. You have to do it empirically. You have to find some kind of evidence for this. You can't just say, I think this is what people will do. Then go out and see what they do. You can, of course, for your hypothesis, you have to say, I think they're going to do this for these reasons. But then you have to, if you can test it, you need to go and test it. And then if you do test it, you have to do that in a robust way. And I think with a lot of experimental research, the danger is that because experiments are so difficult to set up, so many things can go wrong. If we don't think carefully enough about the all of the possibly confounding variables, and if we put all our emphasis on doing really interesting and sophisticated statistics, but we have very small samples, then it's tempting to say we found a significant result here and this now answers this question, when we've really only looked at a very tiny bit of reality. We've looked at 20 students in a particular geographical location with a particular set of background characteristics, and there's no way you can extrapolate from that to the population or to more countries. So I think it's really good that we started doing empirical research, but we do need more replication of the research we're doing. We do need to also look at how do you really get power in your analyses. Do you have enough participants to be able to answer a question?
Okay.
I think we should guard against saying, because I found a significant result, that answers this question, as I said previously.
Okay.
So I think there is definitely a need for more robust empirical research, but there's also, inevitably, we can't avoid the fact that we need to start doing research on how humans interact with technology more than we've done, just because technology has changed so much in the last 2 years even, that there's a lot of work that we need to do there. There are different areas in translation studies that seem to have put a lot of emphasis on different things. I mean, there's been a shift away from the translation product to the translator and to the receiver already. But in interpreting, there's been a lot of work from very early on cognition and what happens in the mind of the interpreter, for obvious reasons. But that kind of thing is now beginning to become more important in audiovisual translation and in translation studies as well. In translation, I don't want to say proper, but you know what I mean? Written translation. Yeah. So I think that what needs to be done more is more interdisciplinary work. But there still needs to be a lot of qualitative work looking at the context, at the theoretical foundation of what we're doing. I think we should avoid jumping into experiments without making sure that those experiments actually are based on questions that are informed by solid theoretical foundations. Because otherwise the so what question becomes very prominent.
Very good.
Okay.
Daniel Reed, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.